Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. It's my pleasure to be with you here today, taking you through the fintech opportunities that have been trending through the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's presentation will be presented by myself and Shereen. We will take you through the global fintech trends that has been engaging and growing in the last recent weeks. And then we will take your questions, and please submit your questions if you have them on the tool. And at the end of the presentation, we will answer all of the questions. So we wake up one day and the world was closed. We were all in lockdown and we didn't know how to deal with this situation. Cash, from being a king, became the enemy. It was moving and enabling the virus to move between people across continents and across sectors. A lot of businesses closed down and filed for bankruptcy, while others grew exponentially. As we have seen the shift from traditional retail to e-commerce, we have realized the same shift is happening in different sectors, including fintech. The whole world economies are expected to contract by 3% this year due to this pandemic. However, with 2021, we'll be looking at recovery in global markets. And we expect the GDP is expected to increase by 5.8% over the next year. What does this all mean for fintech? When we look at the fintech sector specifically, and the fintech funding in particular, we see that the funding has fallen to 2017 levels, but did not disappear and would not disappear. We see that real valuations are actually becoming more evident, and the global fintech financing deal count has gone down to 2016 levels. So we think it's an opportunity to invest in fintech right now. As we can see, the whole shift to digital platforms is affecting all sectors in general and fintech in specific. Regardless, some areas of fintech are expected to see high demand from individuals and institutions. And we will take you through a detailed scan of all of these subsectors within fintech and what are the areas that are affected within all of these subsectors that are becoming an opportunity for and the way forward. Shereen, I will hand over this slide to you to take us through all of the subsectors of fintech and to take us through the impact of each of these subsectors.
Great, thank you, Raja. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for dialing in today. I'll be taking you through the 6 areas you see here on the slides. We're going to start off with investment tech. We'll be looking at the areas being impacted by COVID and what that means for fintechs. Then we'll be looking into lending, followed by payments infrastructure. So a lot of these 3 areas are very consumer driven. Then we'll be looking into banking tech, so more about infrastructure, the infrastructure driving banks, followed by RegTech, and then lastly, Insurtech. So let's start off by talking about investment and how COVID has affected people and the way people manage their money and their savings and their expenses. Let's begin by personal finance management. As COVID has led to a lot of uncertainty with what's happening with future income for individuals, we see a big opportunity for tools to come about that'll help people better manage their money, expenses, and savings. On that note, for those looking to save and grow their income over the years, robo-advisory could be a very good tool, particularly given that the cost of securities is so low right now. We've seen a very big increase in the number of new account openings amongst various wealth management apps. And that brings me on to those speculative traders who are looking to make money from the market volatility going on right now. What this means for fintechs is that there's a lot of opportunity in growing online trading, particularly when it comes to FX trading. Moving on to lending. So let's shift a bit from the consumer and focus on the SMEs who are suffering as a result of COVID. SMEs, as well as individuals, are seeing uncertainty when it comes to their future income. Now, what this means for SMEs is the potential demise of some small businesses. Now, what governments are doing around the world in order to combat this is they have offered various relief packages and have tasked banks with distributing the emergency loans onto small and medium enterprises. Now, this can also be in the form of lines of credit. Due to the uncertainty with COVID, we see a lot of banks looking to engage with fintechs to find new and innovative ways to do credit scoring in order to help these SMEs adjust the COVID weather storm. And last but not least, when it comes to lending, a lot of people are actually showing their generous side throughout these COVID times, and we see a big shift in crowdfunding donation campaigns, and we see a big opportunity for fintechs to rise that can help these donations be tracked and ensure that they reach the intended parties. Now, moving on to payments infrastructure. As Raja mentioned, cash has unfortunately become an instrument in transferring the COVID virus from one place to the other. So we see a big trend in contactless payments, and particularly e-wallets as a tool to effectively become a digital currency. And what this means for fintechs and financial institutions in the payment processing space is there's an opportunity to find the cheapest and quickest payments routes to enable the processing. Now, moving on to banking technology, what does this all mean for the financial institutions? Well, first and foremost, a lot of consumer behavior is changing to bank only the basic necessity, basically deposits and withdrawals. What this means is banks are pressured now more than ever to work with fintechs in order to collaborate and develop specialized products. Now, when it comes to the way a bank does its business, people don't want to go outside. So there's less focus on branch operations efficiency and more so on delivering these operational gold standards digitally. So think conversational banking and mobile. Last but not least, and quite unfortunately, we see a big trend or rather uptake in fraud across all industries, let alone banks as an area. So we see a big focus and need to look into tools this year that focus on alleviating cybersecurity. On the note of cybersecurity, let's take a moment and focus on RegTech and regulation technology. As people are no longer able to visit branches in order to open an account with banks, we see a big shift in digital onboarding, more so than before, and more specifically a drive in order to do identity verification digitally, as opposed to having a person opening an account, coming and visiting a branch to show their documentation and verify their IDs. And as people transact online more than person and via cash, we see a big risk in anti-money laundering and therefore an opportunity for AI tools that help financial institutions capture anti-money laundering before the crimes are committed. Now, moving on to staff monitoring, as much as customers are not going into bank branches, neither are the staff. Where traditionally a lot of staff monitoring processes are put in place within the premise of an organization, we see an opportunity to shift these into a digital means in order to monitor the activity of staff as they continue to work from home. That leads me on to data privacy. As people use their personal devices with multiple apps being integrated on there lies the risk of cross-sharing information that is sensitive to your customers with hackers of these tools. So we see some emphasis being put this year in data privacy. And last but not least, because of all the micro and macro insecurities that have come about through COVID, we see a big drive in risk management tools in order to help banks manage the risk over the next few months. The last category I'm going to touch upon is Insurtech. As the world becomes more and more uncertain as a result of COVID, we see people wanting to hedge their risks by undertaking insurance products. Now, what does this mean for drafting policy? We see a big need for these insurance companies to utilize large customer databases as well as regulatory guidelines in order to develop products and pricing. Just because COVID is unknown and the impact that has on insurance companies is not yet easy to anticipate. As with banks, all these insurance companies will have to engage with their customers digitally. You cannot visit an agent anymore, which means further reliance on digital tools such as chatbots and telehealth solutions. And last but not least, because these people are not able to visit agents in person, they will be going online in order to compare insurance policies against different providers. And hence we see an uptake in insurance comparison tools. Now over to Raja to explain to us on how the DIFC FinTech Hive can help you, whether you're an institution or an individual looking to innovate in the FinTech and Insurtech space.
Thank you, Shereen. Now, through the FinTech Hive, we continue to advocate the innovation in financial services because this is the future of financial services. And we have the buy-in and support of all of our partners, whether it's financial institutions or ecosystem partners. We are currently discussing these priorities and many more with our partners that are engaged in our Accelerator program. We'll continue to run the Accelerator program this year, whether in person or virtually. We continue to understand what do these priorities mean to our partners and how can they be translated into solutions. So we will continue to scout for startups that are focusing on these solutions, and we will engage them with our partners through the Accelerator program that is due to start in September. Obviously, this will be our fourth cohort, and so far we have accelerated more than 85 fintech startups through this program, and collectively they have launched more than 60 POCs in the market. The other thing that we offer through the FinTech Hive is also the access to the co-working space, where we provide commercial licenses for fintech startups, access to regulation through the innovation testing license through the DFSA, and access to a creative co-working space. And so far we have more than 130 companies registered and operating from our co-working space. We also conduct corporate innovation programs for our partners or any entity that is interested to deep dive into innovation and financial services or other areas. So we conduct hackathons, innovation sprints, and internal innovation engagements to enable these institutions tap into talent and innovation and acquire a bigger market share for their organizations. We also support the FinTech community. I am proud to say that the FinTech Hive is the FinTech hub in the Middle East MENA region. We have, as I mentioned, more than 130 companies registered, more than 85 startups accelerated, and we have a community of more than 5,000 individuals that interact with us through our ecosystem. We run women empowerment accelerator programs called Accelerator, where we look for women from the financial services industry and we pair them with mentors from within the same sector. We have access to the largest investor network in the region, and this way we connect the fintech startups that are interested in raising funding with the right investors. And we continue to host community events to promote fintech, to promote solutions and innovative technologies that are coming from within our network, and enable access to these through our events. Obviously, we operate from the DIFC, and DIFC is recognized as the 8th best global financial center by GFCI. There are more than 2,200 companies registered in the DIFC, with more than 24,000 people working in the DIFC. To support the fintech industry, DIFC dedicated $100 million fintech fund to invest in fintech, and so far there has been deployment of these investments in some of the fintech startups, and I'm proud of the investment that have went through the FinTech Hive startups. We also have access to an independent regulator, the DFSA, through the DIFC ecosystem, which enables the startups to access the innovation testing license, the regulatory sandbox, advisory services from our partners at the DFSA. Now, before we move to Q&A, just to give you a bit of on what I and the team have been busy with, we have launched a social distancing challenge, where we have interviewed many entrepreneurs from all over the world who have been developing technologies that enable social distancing, and also tracing and tracking COVID-19, and enable companies and organizations to tap into certain innovations that would enable them go back to markets as they reopen. The demo day is on the 2nd of June. We have the registration link there. It's from 12 to 2. We are going to present the startups that have been selected for the to pitch on the day. 12 to 2 means it's at your lunch hour, so we hope that you are able to join us on the day. The registration link is on the screen, so please register to attend the demo day. Now we will shift to questions and answers. And Shereen, do you have any questions from the crowd?
Sure, we do have some questions that have been coming along the way as we've been presenting. Just as a reminder to anyone looking to ask a question, you'll see a panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and on the bottom of the panel, you'll see a speech bubble. That's where you click in order to submit a question. We will receive the questions, read them out loud, and Raja and I will be answering. So we'll start with the first question. Thanks very much for the insights. There is a wide array of areas to focus in the fintech sector. What is the need that would lead the way moving forward? What shall innovators and investors focus on?
So we have just focused on the top 6 global trends in fintech. Shereen, can you put that slide up, and maybe that would give a summary on the 6 areas that we have looked at. So basically, investment tech, lending, payment infrastructure, banking tech, RegTech, and Insurtech. And we have discussed thoroughly the subsectors within these 6 areas that are currently gaining traction globally, and interest from innovators, investors, and financial institutions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the world as we know it, we won't be operating into a similar world. We will be shifting into a new digital enabled world. And once all of these areas are captured and provided to the consumers, there is no going back to doing business the way it was.
Great. Now let's move on to the next question. Are you able to help raise funding for fintechs that are not part of your community and are not being accelerated by you?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the DIFC launched a dedicated fintech fund of $100 million US that has been invested in FinTech Hive startups and non-FinTech Hive startups. And you can access the application form through the DIFC website or also through the FinTech Hive website. So we have a page on funding that you can find on both websites. You can fill in that application with details about your startup and the type of funds you're looking at. And the investment team would review these applications and get in touch for further information.
Just to add to Raja's point, if you go onto fintechhive.ae, on the upper right-hand side, you'll see a pink button called Get in Touch. If you click there, you'll see the button that says FinTech Fund. You fill the form right in, and we'll be in touch. Great. The next question is as follows. Can FinTech businesses with core business outside the UAE apply? I'm assuming this.
Absolutely. So we continue to receive applications from all over the world for all of our acceleration programs. So we're looking at growth stage companies that have a proven business model or an innovative technology to join our program and work with our financial institutions on experimenting these technologies in the region. So absolutely from anywhere in the world.
Great. The next question is, how will the regulation shift to push peer-to-peer solutions independently?
What do you think, Shereen?
Right now, unfortunately, consumer peer-to-peer lending is not allowed in the UAE because neither the regulators of the financial districts nor the UAE Central Bank permit it. But within the DIFC, we do have some peer-to-peer solutions that support SMEs. Beehive is an example of a company like this. So to whoever submitted the question, if you are interested in exploring peer-to-peer solutions, you can definitely look into the regulation on the DIFC Regulators website, the DFSA. Let's move on to the next question. You mentioned assistance with licenses. Does this mean that successful accelerators get licensed through FinTech Hive? I assume what this person means is, do the people on the Accelerator program get licensed to FinTech Hive?
So the main objective of the Accelerator program is to encourage collaboration between FinTech startups and the financial institutions through proof of concepts. And if these companies are not based in the UAE post the program, they would need official presence, commercial license to conduct this kind of engagement with these financial institutions. So the DIFC have launched subsidized licenses for FinTech startups only, and that enables them to get a commercial license from the DIFC for $1,500, which actually is, I'm not sure, either waived or discounted for the COVID-19 period. So this is the best time to register your company with the DIFC. So we definitely help the startups that come through the Accelerator program establish presence in the DIFC through our ecosystem.
Reja, that ties in very nicely to the next question. Do you foresee the FinTech Hive providing any support initiatives, operational or otherwise, during these times? So perhaps if there's anything else of an incentive the DIFC is providing as a result of COVID, we can touch on that.
Absolutely. So the DIFC have launched a stimulus package for all of its clients to support them through these difficult times. And the DIFC FinTech Hive has done the same. As I mentioned, I just need to double check whether it's a waiver or a discount on the commercial licenses. I think it's a waiver for commercial licenses, a discount for renewals, and deferment of payments on leases. And if anything more than that is required, the team are available to listen to your specific requirements and support you through your journey with the DIFC FinTech Hive, because at the end of the day, we are interested in your success, your growth, and your development in the region, and we will support you throughout.
Fantastic. All right, the next question is, does FinTech Hive also assist in partnering FinTechs with banks?
Why don't you answer this, Shereen, since you manage that whole relationship?
So this is actually the core of the way our Accelerator program is designed. Our flagship program is industry driven. We have most of the country's largest banks and insurance companies partnering in this program, specifically with the objective to meet FinTech entrepreneurs and explore partnership opportunities with them, in addition to mentoring. So if anyone who is a FinTech entrepreneur looking to work with a bank, please do apply to our Accelerator program. We're right now accepting applications through to mid-June, and you can apply by visiting our website, fintechhive.ae. All right, let's move to the next question. Will the Hive still have a focus in the next cohort on Islamic FinTech? And how have you recently found your Scouting for Unicorns mission?
So absolutely, Islamic FinTech remains a core focus area for the FinTech Hive through our partnership with Dubai Islamic Economic Development Department, who are focusing on developing and growing the FinTech sector and partnering with us in scouting for Islamic FinTech startups. And we have seen the number of FinTech startups grow over the years. We started with one in the first cohort, and we were in terms of applications, and we've received more than 10 applications in our last cohort. So the need is realized for Islamic FinTech solutions, and it will continue to be a core focus area for the FinTech Hive. With regards to our scouting for the unicorn, we will never stop until we launch the first FinTech unicorn from the FinTech Hive. So stay tuned, and I really look forward to that. Maybe we don't need to scout because they're already in the FinTech Hive, but who knows, we need to wait and hit that number and announce our FinTech unicorn.
Fantastic. Inshallah, sooner than later. The next question is, will there be continued collaboration with the Saudi FinTech scene?
Absolutely. We have built amazing relationships with our counterparts in Saudi, whether it's with financial institutions like Riyadh Bank or Al Ahli Bank, or with government entities like Munshaat and FinTech Saudi. We are in constant conversations with them on potential areas of collaboration, and we will be more than happy to continue that engagement provided the right opportunity is present.
Fantastic. The next question is, what are your thoughts on equity crowdfunding platforms in terms of regulation and adoption in MENA?
Shereen, would you like to take that one maybe?
Absolutely. So there are equity crowdfunding platforms in MENA right now. There's a company that is actually based in the DIFC called Eureka that does just that, meaning that the DIFC's regulator also permits that activity. I personally am an investor in Eureka, the company, so I would say that I think it's a fantastic model and I believe in it. I know that not all regulators in MENA offer fintechs within their country to be equity crowdfunding platforms yet, but I do see it being on the rise. I've seen other fintechs pitch this business model elsewhere in the GCC. Should we move on to the next question? After the pandemic, which fintechs will be the most popular?
I believe the fintechs that have continue to focus on their offering of financial innovation and shifting the consumer behavior online, or optimizing the banking tech operations to generate value for these institutions will always be in the highlight of the journey. I don't know, what do you think, Shereen?
That's right. Me something. Raja, are you still able to hear me? I think there may be some connectivity issues.
I can hear you now. I lost you for a minute.
All right, as long as I'm back on. Did you address anything to me, or should we move on to the next question?
No, I said, what are your views on which fintechs are going to be relevant post-pandemic?
So honestly, as we mentioned with an earlier question, the 6 areas that we covered in this presentation seem very, very promising. So to recap, invest tech, tools that will help people budget, save money, take advantage of the market, lending, particularly when it comes to helping SMEs during this time, payment solutions, so anything digital wallet related, being able to transact without having to visit a store, as well as the other 3 areas that we mentioned. Just for everyone to know, you will be getting a copy of this webinar, so you can always revisit the 6 areas and look into the trends we see within these areas to get our views on the fintech trends for the year. So let's move on to the next question. Raja, how has the innovation testing license evolved since its inception? I assume this means the DFSA's innovation testing license.
Yeah, so we started, I think, with the FinTech Hive cohorts to experiment with these regulations, and through SARWA, the first robo-advisory license or regulation was adopted or launched by the DFSA and adopted by Fintechs. And then we had the crowdfunding regulations through Smart Crowd. I know that the DFSA are working closely with the fintech startups on developing the payments regulation, which hopefully will be out, announced very soon. They have launched their summer cohort right now, and I would suggest anyone who's interested in learning more about the innovation testing license to have a look at the DFSA website under the FinTech page and look at the regulations that has been launched. And if your technology is not addressed by these regulations, apply to the cohort. You will have access to supervisory and advisory services from our colleagues in the DFSA. And that would enable you to understand the regulatory requirement to actually execute these transactions and take these technologies to the market.
Super. Let's move on to the next question. This is regarding the Accelerator program. Do you think that you can start your program this year because of pandemic flight restrictions?
So as I mentioned earlier, we're committed to delivering the FinTech Hive Accelerator program. And just as all of us shifted to digital platforms, if the flight restrictions continue to be in place till September, then we will conduct the program online. And we will make sure that the startups and the partners get the best support and value out of this program as we have done in the previous years. We have commitment to our partners to deliver the program. We have just started scouting for the program, and I hear that we have already more than 200 applications, which is great news. So the interest in the program continues to grow. The partners are committed to looking and working with innovative technologies. So definitely we will conduct the program this year.
Great, I look forward to it. The next question is, how does FinTech Hive plan on facilitating the new notion of FinTech 2.0?
So the FinTech Hive is the FinTech hub in the region. We were the first and largest FinTech hub to be established. We have got the support from the DIFC to have access to the innovation testing license, and to have access to the 100 million FinTech fund, and to have access to ecosystem partners that are supporting the FinTech startups throughout their journey. With all of that access, I believe that we have the necessary infrastructure and support to grow and to continue to be leaders in this market. So for FinTech 2.0, we will definitely be the leaders by remaining close to our partners, close to the FinTechs, close to the development of the financial technology innovations industry.
On the note of being connected with partners, the next question is, can FinTech Hive connect startups with banks without the startup being a part of the Accelerator program?
I think I already answered this, but you can answer it again, Shereen.
I would highly encourage everyone to apply to the Accelerator program, and I'll tell you why. The idea is not to simply get an email introduction. The idea is to work with bankers who have set aside time with all the stakeholders relevant in the bank to work with these fintechs. And if you meet them through the structure and framework of a program, you ensure that they have pre-allocated the time commitment required to sit with you, discuss the business opportunity, and take it from there. So it's not a matter of sharing contacts, it's a matter of going through a proven model to make sure that the partnerships will flourish. The next question is, how can a fintech startup that needs regulatory approval to register within the DIFC?
So if you just reach us through our website or our email addresses, myself or any person in the team would connect you with the right team members within the DIFC authority who would help you through the whole registration process. And we will connect you also with the DFSA to make sure that you have the right requirements, the right regulatory license, and the right commercial license. So we will take care of you. All that you have to do is send us an email with your details, and myself or any of the team members will connect you with the right team members within the organization that would help you through the process.
Fantastic. The next question is, besides partnering with banks, should fintechs also look to partner with regulators and government bodies?
Obviously, for regulators, I don't think that partnership is something relevant in this context unless you are a service provider, because the regulators are quite independent in their role within the fintech industry because they regulate these technologies. Now, in terms of partnership with government entities, absolutely. So the UAE government is an innovative government, and with COVID-19, we have seen how seamless the transition was from normal working behaviors to digital working behaviors. And we have seen the access to all of the online tools, the forms, the documents that you can sign electronically and share between different departments that have supported that whole transition. So we continue to work closely with the government, whether it's Smart Dubai, whether it's the Ministry of Health or Dubai Police or whichever relevant government entity that would benefit from any innovation that come our way. We actually reach out to them, talk to them about the innovation, how can it add value to their organization, and then take these fintech startups with us and do that introduction of the technology and encourage that collaboration. And one example is one of our fintech startups that does the KYC, Norblock, had a collaboration with the Bioeconomic Department and multiple financial institutions to automate the onboarding process for the customers of Dubai Economic Development, Dubai Economic Department. So wherever there are opportunities for collaboration with the government, we will facilitate that.
Fantastic. The next question is, does FinTech Hive look to work with other accelerators globally?
Absolutely, and I think Shereen, you may want to answer this as you work very actively with our Accelerators network.
Absolutely. So I tell people we're based in Dubai, but we make friends everywhere in order to have a reach globally. What this means is I form relationships with my counterparts in other fintech hubs and associations and accelerators around the world with the specific aim to exchange referrals, meaning that any one of my accelerator alumni will get benefit by being connected to the right launch pads in various parts of the world across North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, you name it. And we similarly offer a vice versa relationship for alumni of accelerators and hubs and associations internationally to be referred to us to learn about the DIFC FinTech Hive as a launch pad into MENA. In fact, some of our best and most successful program participants have come as a way of referrals from these hubs. So it is absolutely a core, yes. The next question is, do you see any concrete support from regulators in the UAE on open banking anytime soon?
Absolutely, and I believe open banking is becoming the new standard, and with the pandemic that's accelerating all things digital, I think this will continue to evolve. We would definitely see some guidance from the central bank or from the UAE regulators on open banking, because today, under these circumstances, we are not able to access these services either because the banks are not ready or because the regulation does not support them. So it is really important now more than any other time to prioritize these regulations, because as we have seen in our global trends analysis, open banking continues to be a focus area, because for the financial institutions that are not able or are not ready to provide these services to consumers through open banking, they will be able to partner and collaborate with existing technologies that would make the go-to-market faster for them.
Fantastic. Raja, there's quite a few questions. I hope you don't mind going on.
I don't mind, absolutely.
All right. Would you accelerate a fintech whose target market would be in a country outside the UAE or GCC?
Absolutely. The way we accept fintech startups into our Accelerator program is by voting from different financial institutions that are part of our program. They define the challenges, they define the priorities, and they interview the startups to be admitted into the program. And if this startup is solving a problem that one of these financial institutions believe it is shifting the industry, then definitely this startup would get into the program.
Fantastic. The next question is quite interesting. It says, in which fintech area do you see the UAE becoming a leader or specialist hub in the future?
Personally, I would say payments, because the UAE is already one of the top countries in terms of money remittance. And since COVID and all of the restrictions on physical access to these institutions, a lot of these companies are looking to enable that digitally. And because the UAE is a hub within the region for travel or for business, it is important to enable that easy flow of funds from and into the country. And I believe with the efforts the central bank are taking and the regulators, with the experiment that we have right now between the UAE Central Bank and Saudi Central Bank, I believe that would pave the way for many more initiatives to be developed in terms of payments. I don't know, what do you think, Shereen, from your point of view?
I agree, but I'd also like to add another focus area I would love for the UAE to be a specialist in, and that is actually Islamic finance. So being at the heart of half of the world's Muslim population is a very big opportunity for fintechs to specialize and diversify in. To date, the Islamic fintech hubs in the world have been Malaysia, which is understandable. There's a very big Muslim population there. But next to that is London. And though London happens to be the fintech capital of the world, I think there is a big opportunity for us as the fintech capital of MENA, us meaning Dubai, to use the talent here to either offer fully Sharia compliant offerings or even an Islamic window. And through our program, we actually help fintechs who are not Sharia compliant or offer a Sharia product explore the opportunities of offering one. And then we help guide them and give them the mentorship on how to restructure and remodel to be able to offer that.
I agree with you.
Great. Next question is, how long do you think it will be until cloud adoption occurs on a large scale and swift pace throughout incumbents and existing financial institutions?
So I personally think this will really depend on how good our data privacy and risk management tools are in, because of data protection laws and because of data privacy laws. We really need to work with these regulations. And once these tools have proven their ability to protect and operate within a safe environment, I think that would be the enabler for adoption. What do you think, Shereen?
I agree. The issue is with cloud, particularly when it comes to banking, is all customer sensitive data, according to the regulator, needs to be held onshore. And that goes for whether you're a bank holding the customer sensitive information or a fintech. So we work with a lot of cloud solution providers to help store this information onshore, meaning that you can still access cloud, but a closed cloud within the UAE. And until the regulation changes, the adoption rate will not progress any further. So the next question, on a different tangent, what is the bigger market, the B2C or B2B scene in the UAE?
I would say from a fintech perspective, it's the B2B, just because the regulations today enables that. And working in partnership or in collaboration with financial institutions or any institution that is willing to use that technology gives you access to a bigger market segment in a shorter period of time. B2C is under-regulated, I would say, or there are not enough regulations specifically for fintech in terms of B2C offering. And by the time these regulations are out, you will need, as a startup, to invest heavily in marketing to reach to all of these consumer targets. So that's my opinion. I don't know, Shereen, if you think otherwise.
No, I agree with you. The majority of the fintechs who come through our platform tend to be B2B as opposed to B2C. Even though B2C can result in larger scale in terms of number of users, often the customer cost of acquisition is quite high for these B2C companies, whereas with B2B, once you have an enterprise on board, they tend to be a customer for a while, and your customer retention rates are better. But equally, investments are being made into both B2B as well as B2C companies. A sound business with well-experienced and driven entrepreneurs are what makes a business as opposed to a B2C or B2B approach.
Absolutely.
So the next question is, and I think we may need to reword it, regarding the access to the DFSA cohort, will the application be via FinTech Hive or another route?
So as I mentioned, there is a web page on the DFSA website that has the application to the cohort. So that's completely independent from the FinTech Hive. However, we facilitate that conversation. So we may send you the link. We may promote the applications, because at the end of the day, our role is to support the industry and have as many companies regulated and licensed from the DIFC. So access the FinTech innovation testing license is independent from the DIFC FinTech Hive. However, we will be more than happy to guide you through the application process. And Shereen, maybe in our next webinar, we bring in the DFSA because it seems like there are a lot of questions about regulatory guidelines that would be great to clarify.
Absolutely. In fact, the next question is a very specific regulatory question. Let me pull it out. What is the latest on eKYC rules from the DFSA/Central Bank for fully digital onboarding being acceptable? In addition for digital signatures, so quite lengthy. Would you like to address it?
You can go ahead, Shereen.
Super. So 100% digital onboarding is not allowed onshore yet. However, you can, as a consumer, be fully onboarded by a financially regulated entity that is based in the DIFC. One of our fintechs is actually able to do that, as an example. So the rules do exist. My recommendation is anyone who needs to learn more about the DFSA regulation, go on their website because they actually publish all the regulations. They're readily available. And if you ever have any questions, they do have a dedicated email for fintechs. It's fintech@dfsa.ae. And as Raja recommended, I think a follow-up webinar with them would be very, very helpful.
Absolutely.
Great. Let me move on to the next question. What is the expected maturity level of startups wanting to join the Accelerator program? For example, a startup still at the idea conception stage with no development product or MVP.
So at the DIFC, we have, at the DIFC FinTech Hive, we have 3 accelerator programs. We have a program for the early stage startups, and these are companies that have, I would say, at least an MVP to start with. The second program is the growth stage program. And for this program, we look for companies that have at least 1 client somewhere in the world, because this program is enables these fintechs to pitch their technologies to financial institutions from the region. And we need to make sure that they've reached that maturity level by having at least 1 customer somewhere in the world. And then the third program is the Scala Program. And this is just matching post-Series A fintech startups with investors who would be investing in them and enabling them scale through the region. Now, for fintechs with an idea or a pre-MVP, I think we currently don't have any programs to accommodate that. However, I would keep an eye on our newsletter because we continue to have requests from certain institutions or organizations to conduct a challenge, or for example, like the social distancing challenge, we have looked at idea stage kind of startups that have potential to grow and develop. So I would suggest to register with our newsletter. Keep an eye on all the programs that come that are promoted through our program. And we also, by the way, promote programs from our partner network. So sometimes there are challenges in Saudi, there are challenges in the UK or India or Singapore through our partners and all of these hubs, and we promote them through our newsletter.
All right, Raja, there's one last question. If a startup has a product or service that has a solution to a problem that customers really like, but could possibly result in a bank not liking the idea because they would lose the customers or market share, would you still support the startup?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, our program looks at developing the sector, the industry. We work with the financial institutions who are looking for disruption. They are looking at what's happening in the market, what technologies are disrupting the financial services sector. How can they collaborate with such technologies? And if not collaborate with them, how can they work with them or at least recognize their existence? So we as the FinTech Hive continue to accept startups, and we actually encourage healthy competition. We like the startups that are coming up with technologies that are disrupting the financial services, and I would love to see the financial partners say, we don't want this technology, they will take the market share. But we have not really seen that, unless maybe I would say one time. But we definitely support all types of innovations. We continue to promote the ecosystem, and if these technologies are really transforming the sector and the industry, we could definitely help them get licensed, get regulated if necessary, and match them with investors if they are looking for funds to grow.
Great. So in addition to all the wonderful questions that have come about, Reja, there are actually some messages in here thanking us for hosting the webinar. I'd like to thank everyone for attending and for helping us grow and support us and bring us to where we are. If I have not had the time to go through your question, I do see some last minute questions coming in. Please do email us. You'll see our email on the slide, admin@fintechhive.ae. We respond to every single query that comes in. So please do feel free to drop us an email. I did, of course, skip through a lot of repetitive questions. So if you did not hear your question be read out in the exact way you wrote it, please always review the webinar. We're going to email across the recording, and you'll see snippets of answers here and there. Reja, any closing comments or thoughts?
I would like to thank you all for joining us today, and I'm really grateful for the support that we have, the community that has always supported us. And thank you for asking all of these questions, because this way it's really interactive and exciting. It's not a one-way kind of engagement, which we don't encourage. And based on the questions that came, I believe we will plan to host a webinar with our colleagues from the DFSA, and we will recap the top 6 global fintech trends, because we need to communicate this more often, and we will highlight what has the DFSA done in the fintech regulation space and talk about their cohort. Thank you all for joining us. As Shereen said, we answer all of your emails. Please reach out to us, whether on social media accounts or on our email. Our applications are open for the FinTech Hive Accelerator program, so if you're interested, please apply, as we are going through all the applications that come through the program. Thank you all, and have a great day. Thank you, Shereen, for facilitating.
Thank you, Reja.
Thank you.